Are you not engaged? Hello world, welcome back to another extremely exciting episode of Camp Aspinall, where we're talking about all things engagement, but not engagement on a channel like thumb up, thumb down, although I guess that kind of applies. I want to introduce to you somebody new from the Codebreaker camp. This is Dr. Marc Isseks, and we are a few short weeks away from publishing his book. Marc has spent over 30 years in education. Let me try and paraphrase his words. He lights fires under teachers that want to crush it and sets fires to systemic conventions that do not. How do we engage and empower students in a world full of digital distractions? Well, I'm going to turn it over to Marc, who's got 30 plus years learning about this very topic.
Increasing student engagement is more difficult than ever because our students are more distracted than ever. Give me 5 minutes and I'll share some ideas about how you can increase student engagement by dropping the do now. The average TikToking teen spends roughly 90 minutes on the app each day. Want to know the average watch time for a TikTok? 1.5 seconds, which is that. The TikTok analytics team has identified what they call the 3-second rule. It basically says that your content could be great, but if you haven't engaged the viewer in the first 3 seconds, it's basically over. And when a video fails to reach the 3-second threshold, the algorithm reduces the likelihood of that content reaching someone else's For You page. On the other hand, the average class lesson features a do now activity that lasts 3 minutes. What exactly have you planned that can overcome the 3-second rule, not once, but 60 times? Or are we tacitly suggesting to our students, this lesson may not be for you? It's easy to blame short attention spans. Here are 2 reasons not to. 1. Children, like adults, have been expertly drawn into technological addiction by some of the most powerful and influential companies in the world, and that has caused a major shift in how they consume information. Not their fault, it's the adults. 2. Kids spend countless hours each day on social media and gaming. They're wired to engage now more than ever for really long, even unhealthy periods of time. But what they won't do is sit around and wait for you to make it interesting. For those educators unwilling to change their ways, this is really depressing. But for those flexible and innovative teachers willing to meet students where they are, this is exactly where the window of opportunity is. To make room for new ideas, we have to say goodbye to conventions that have lost their effectiveness. Yes, do now. I'm talking about you. Shakespeare once wrote, "Parting is such sweet sorrow." But in this case, it's actually more like good riddance. The original intention behind the do now was to assign a task that generated immediate compliance to aid in classroom management. This gave a teacher 3 to 5 minutes to handle administrative tasks like collecting homework, distributing papers, taking attendance, etc. Most of that is handled digitally now. And as for students, if you really want to manage behaviors, try engaging them from the jump, which touches upon one of the other myths of the do now. There's this really outdated premise that a learner needs to warm up before they engage in learning. Where are the TikTok warm-ups? Instagram? Snap? When you YouTube how to fix your washing machine, do you first watch videos on the history of washing machines or the importance of fixing things before you activate your prior knowledge? Brains aren't wired that way anymore. Of course, a teacher still may need to recall prior knowledge to help students build new understandings. But that does not have to happen in the opening minutes. It is far more important to spark an interest than review previous lessons. There will be time for that. This leads to the most offensive part of the do now, in my opinion. It's usually boring. Why? It's typically rote practice. Solve these problems, define these terms, write 3 things you remember about the Roman Empire. And for these menial tasks, students get a whopping 3, 4, or 5 minutes. You sure you want to give 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds 4 minutes of idle time? The opening is when they are making a critical assessment as to whether or not they want to invest in what you are selling. The opening has to be absolute fire, not fizzle. Don't be fooled by the students who are sitting quietly. That is not engagement, it's compliance. Real learning is usually noisy. A great motivation is a call to action. But students are often hindered because for many, there are barriers, not the least of which is a lack of intrinsic desire to learn about the subject you teach. So how do you get around that not so tiny obstacle? Take, for example, a math lesson in which students learn to find the percent of a number. Instead of beginning the lesson with content such as solving a handful of equations like multiplying whole numbers and decimals, begin with a parallel concept. Try this. At the bell, ask if they can help you settle a dispute. I went to this great restaurant yesterday, and at the end of the meal, I got into an argument with my daughter. I wanted to leave a $10 tip, and she said to leave more. Isn't $10 a good tip? I'm sure at some point in this lesson, a math teacher would draw a parallel to leaving a tip at a restaurant, but why wait until students struggle or grow frustrated before breaking down this mathematical idea into ways that they can more easily grasp? And notice that I'm not simply asking them to find their percent right away. Instead, I'm hiding the peas in the mashed potatoes by asking them to weigh in on a dilemma. Dilemmas have conflict, and conflict is the root of drama. And who doesn't love drama? At first, students may immediately chime in based on their opinion of whether $10 is a good tip, but give it a minute. Soon, someone in the room will realize that they do not have enough information to really answer the question, but don't immediately provide it. Keep the tension going by asking a thought-provoking question like, why does it matter? Instead of congratulating that student, I am now challenging all the students to think harder. There is no longer concern of getting tripped up on the math because this is a discussion about a restaurant. It is about logic and relatability. By attacking this conceptually, you have introduced them to the exact kind of mathematical thinking necessary to solve these kinds of problems, and lucky for the math teacher, the only way to truly resolve the conflict is to learn how to do the math. This is just one tiny example of how leading with concepts helps circumvent some commonplace barriers to learning. The imaginary walls that stand between your students and the content you wish to teach can be eviscerated when you wield a sledgehammer in the form of a great motivation. Be sure to check out my next video where I'll break down how to level up your motivation game even further. Remember, great teaching is not easy. Motivating students is not easy. Keeping students engaged in a world of digital distractions is not easy. But if you're passionate about what you do, then all of this hard work is a labor of love. Be sure to subscribe, comment, and share with educators who are passionate about making a difference in the lives of kids.
What a time to be alive. To think about how quickly, and I've experienced it on this very channel, I'll put out what I think is a quality video, 15 minutes long, but if AI doesn't pick it up in the first 3 seconds, it's crickets. And then there was one video I made, a Sea-Doo video, where I didn't put a lot of energy into it. I strapped the GoPro on the boat and took it for a spin, and YouTube promoted the crap out of it. So anyway, what a time to be alive, and food for thought about some of the things and hooks we use in our classroom lessons. I appreciate that Marc calls his book Captivate and uses that hook symbolically. Well, I wasn't sure I was going to put out a video today. I'm at least trying to get to Labor Day weekend. The goal is if I could do a video a day all summer, I'll be really proud of myself. I'm not going to set a target like 100 videos, but it almost didn't happen today. Now, here's why. In this YouTube space, I've been meeting new content creators that live on the fringe of education. I don't think they realize just how much their work fits into the education world just because they're not certified teachers. You know, content creators that are putting content out that we can all learn from are educating the world in modern times. So I've made a series of pitches to some content creators I'd love to collaborate with, and many have responded to me. A few have ignored me. I'm under contract with one in particular, but a second group asked for a little bit of a pitch. So I've spent the day working on a slide deck that I think is, well, amazing. Yeah, I paused and amazing is the word I could come up with. I spent the day on cloud 9 because this group, very talented content creators, are interested in the possibility of collaborating on a book project. So that excites me greatly. I can't even sit still. I'm hyper fixated on that project. There's so much happening at the abandoned garage cabin today. I've got a secret to share on that, but I want to save that for an entirely different video. We had a blessing in disguise fall into our lap today on the build project. So lots of things happening. I'm going to try and save all the content for the isolated content silos where they're supposed to go. So this video is about Marc. I do hope you can check out Marc's brand spanking new YouTube channel. I've linked it in the description below. Give Marc a follow on the Instagram. Give Marc a follow on the X. And stay tuned to Codebreaker EDU for our back to school release, Dr. Isseks Captivate. Well, that's going to do it for another episode. As always, peace and love from Canada's most southern mainland shoreline. Give somebody close to you a hug. Tell them they matter. Don't forget you matter. Catch y'all on the next. But wait, hold on. If you're still here, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below. Now you can go. See you tomorrow. Love ya.